at the entrance of Le Cordon d'Or Elite Culinary Institute. A black boy was immediately marked for humiliation by the chief chef because of his dressing and looks. What happens next will shock you. In the hallowed halls of Le Cordon d'Or Elite, status was everything. The aroma of truffle oil and simmering reductions hung heavy in the air of this esteemed culinary institute, a temple of gastronomy where reputation was measured in Michelin stars and family lineage. Chef Antoine Dubois ruled with arrogance, a figure built more on celebrity and rigid tradition than genuine innovation. When a young man, barely 20, stood near the entrance, looking distinctly out of place, he was immediately marked for humiliation. Leo, clad in faded jeans and a simple t-shirt, clutched a worn canvas bag instead of the standard crisp chef's whites and polished knife roll. His presence caused ripples of discomfort among the impeccably uniformed students, mostly from privileged backgrounds. Chef Antoine Dubois' voice, sharp and cutting as a perfectly honed blade, sliced through the hushed anticipation. He made it clear that such attire was not accepted there, and that the institute was not a charity for those who couldn't even afford the proper clothing or lacked respect for the centuries-old craft. Dubois eyed Leo with disdain. All eyes turned to Leo. His thin frame tensed, but his gaze was steady, burning with a quiet fire few recognized. Leo firmly stated that he had paid the full enrollment fee and, while he hadn't been able to get the full kit yet, he was there to learn like everyone else. Dubois, a man whose ego dwarfed his technical prowess, whispers often spoke of his borrowed recipes and reliance on assistants, approached Leo with a sneer. He maintained his intimidating presence through sheer arrogance and a relentless, almost tyrannical grip on the institute's hierarchy. Dubois scoffed at the idea that Leo could simply wander into the most prestigious culinary school in the city without respecting the standards, insisting that this was a serious discipline with rigorous tradition, not some community kitchen project. Nervous titters spread through the students. Some shifted uncomfortably, looking away, but no one spoke up. Leo, standing his ground, offered that he could have the uniform and gear by next week, explaining that he had worked 2 jobs for 6 months just to afford the application and first term there. Dubois crossed his arms, dismissing the importance of just the clothes. He declared that it was about pedigree, discipline, and tradition, things he felt Leo clearly didn't grasp. He turned to the class, stating that today they would demonstrate why selection was crucial in this art, a lesson on who belonged at this level and who didn't. With a swift, dismissive gesture, Dubois grabbed Leo's arm, ordering him to the demo station to show everyone why they didn't take just anyone. Leo's heart pounded, but his face remained impassive as he was practically dragged to the center of the teaching kitchen. The students formed a circle, some discreetly filming on their phones, eager for the spectacle. Dubois ordered Leo to prepare a simple julienne, gesturing to a pile of carrots and a basic knife block, demanding to see his knife skills. Leo, wary, replied that he would rather observe first. Dubois mocked him, saying he wasn't there to learn but to be an example. Dubois then snatched a heavy cleaver, demonstrating an exaggerated, unnecessarily forceful chopping motion, sending carrot pieces flying. He loudly declared that was the difference, technique, control, things he felt Leo lacked. He paused, then applied sudden, painful pressure to Leo's hand, as if correcting his grip on a non-existent knife, explaining that this was why they didn't take just anyone, especially kids who thought watching a few cooking videos made them chefs. More laughter, louder this time. Dubois increased the pressure, causing visible discomfort. He continued, finally releasing him, suggesting Leo should try something more suited to his abilities, perhaps flipping burgers or delivering takeout. What no one noticed as Leo slowly rubbed his hand was the small, worn object he adjusted beneath his t-shirt. A silver-tasting spoon, slightly tarnished with age, a small, almost invisible inscription on the handle. Leo, his voice surprisingly steady, asked if he could try again. Dubois frowned, annoyed he hadn't broken the boy's spirit, but agreed if Leo insisted on wasting their time and ingredients. Chloe Hansen, a talented student from a renowned culinary family, watched with growing unease. Unlike the others, she saw something in Leo's eyes, not shame or defeat, but but a calculated patience that felt utterly alien in this high-pressure environment. That night, as he scrubbed the greasy kitchen hoods, as Du Bois had ordered as a special initiation, Leo touched the tarnished silver spoon. No one at the Institute could have imagined that the YouTube kid had spent his life under the tutelage of Alara Williams. His grandmother, a culinary artist whose innovative approach had been legendary before her career was mysteriously cut short by rumors of unsanitary practices and unreliable sourcing years ago. The same woman who had trained Leo in secret since he was a child, teaching him not just techniques, but the art of strategic patience in the kitchen, waiting for ingredients to reach their peak, allowing flavors to meld, choosing the perfect moment to plate. As he scrubbed, Leo smiled to himself. It wasn't the smile of someone humiliated, but someone precisely where he planned to be. In this temple of gastronomy built on judgment, a quiet disruption had just arrived, carrying secrets that could bring the whole facade crumbling down. Sometimes the greatest power lies in being completely underestimated. In the weeks that followed, Du Bois turned Leo's time at Elite into a meticulously planned hell, cleaning grease traps, washing mountains of pots and pans, organizing the chaos of the dry pantry, all before even touching a good knife or a fresh ingredient. Du Bois would say with a smug grin as he watched Leo scrub floor tiles that this was about discipline, and perhaps they could talk about technique when he learned that. During class demonstrations, Leo rarely participated in practical cooking. When he did, it was only to serve as a target for Du Bois's cutting remarks or heavy-handed corrections, often designed to make him look clumsy or incompetent. Du Bois would mockingly ask if he understood how to handle a hot pan now, stating that this was how they managed clumsy assistants who lack focus. Behind his apparent submission, however, Leo absorbed every movement, every technique, every little detail. On the rare occasions he was allowed near prep, he demonstrated an unusual intuition with ingredients and a surprising speed that caught the eye of the most observant. Marcus Chen, a fellow student known for his precise cuts, noticed Leo's effortless julienne done quickly when Du Bois wasn't looking and asked if he had handled knives before, remarking on his speed and grip. Leo replied with a reserved smile, using the same excuse he always used, saying he had watched a lot of videos. It was Chloe Hansen, the perceptive student, who finally approached him after a particularly brutal class where Du Bois had ridiculed Leo for supposedly burning a simple roux. She whispered urgently for him to meet her at the Larder Cafe around the corner in 10 minutes, stating she needed to talk to him. Away from the Institute's prying eyes, Chloe got straight to the point. She wanted to know what Leo's game was, pointing out that no one took that kind of abuse without a reason, that she had seen Du Bois break much tougher people who quit within days, and that Leo had been there over a month, deliberately hiding how good he was. Leo sighed, recognizing in Chloe the sharp eye and principled nature his grandmother always admired. He explained that sometimes you have to trust someone to win impossible battles. He finally revealed that his grandmother was Alara Williams, stating that she had trained him since he was a kid before her career ended. Chloe gasped quietly, recognizing the name of the whispered legend in culinary circles. Leo continued, explaining that Du Bois had trained alongside her for a short time when they were younger, and that when her reputation was destroyed, he was one of the loudest voices spreading rumors, implying she cut corners and used inferior ingredients. The investigation proved it wasn't true, but the damage was done. Her investors pulled out, her restaurant closed, and she never cooked professionally again. Chloe asked if this was about revenge. Leo corrected her, stating it was about justice. He explained that Du Bois had destroyed her legacy out of jealousy and now ran the institute built on the kind of elitism and prejudice that had ruined her. He made it clear he was not just there to beat him but to expose him. Back at the institute, Du Bois was planning his next public humiliation. The regional young chef competition was coming up, and for his amusement, he entered Leo in the basic skills demonstration category, a showcase for novices. During a class, he announced gloatingly that Williams would be representing the institute in next month's regional competition, in the basic category, of course. Murmurs of surprise rippled through the kitchen. Leo simply nodded, stating calmly that he thanked the chef for the opportunity. Du Bois laughed, telling him not to thank him yet, as he would likely be eliminated immediately, but it would be a valuable lesson in understanding his limitations. What Du Bois didn't know was that 3 nights a week, Leo trained in a small borrowed kitchen in the South Side, generously offered by Maria Rodriguez. Maria was a former sous chef for Alara Williams and now ran a successful catering business while teaching community cooking classes. Chloe had sought out Maria at Leo's suggestion, explaining that he needed to hone his skills without raising suspicion and needed a coach who understood Alara's technique and the history. Maria, who had her own bitter memories of Du Bois's role in Alara's downfall, accepted immediately. She stated that Alara was like a sister to her and that if her grandson had half her talent, Antoine was about to get a lesson he'd never forget. In secret training sessions, Leo finally unleashed his true potential. His technique, refined by years under Alara's demanding eye, impressed even Maria. She observed that his grandmother had taught him well but cautioned that Du Bois would expect someone with basic skills if he saw him compete. They needed him to look competent, perhaps with a few flashes of natural talent, but nothing that screamed elite training. The key was to maintain the illusion, to convince Du Bois he was no threat. As the competition drew closer, Du Bois intensified his training for Leo, basically using him as a personal scullery aide and subject for demeaning demonstrations. That night, after the institute closed, Du Bois received an email from the competition organizers confirming a change in one of the categories. Due to an administrative error, a competitor had been registered incorrectly. Du Bois frowned as he read the name, Leo Williams. His initial disdain turned to confusion as he continued reading. According to the updated roster, Leo would not be competing in the basic skills category. An attachment with his competitive history indicated previous experience, qualifying him for the professional showcase. Du Bois muttered in disbelief that it was impossible, opening the attachment. There it was, a history of regional and even national junior culinary competitions under the name L. Williams, including 3 first-place finishes in categories requiring advanced techniques and presentation. Meanwhile, in his small apartment, Leo stared at the framed photo of his grandmother on the wall. Next to it, carefully hung, was her cherished set of carbon steel knives, the very ones she used in her prime. He had never used them for professional competition, saving them for the right moment. He whispered to the photograph, touching the tarnished silver tasting spoon around his neck, that it was almost time, Grandma. The truth about to be revealed was that the most satisfying victory wasn't in defeating an opponent, but in forcing them to face their own reflection in front of the world they built for themselves. The day of the regional young chef competition dawned with an almost electric energy. The Le Cordon d'Or elite team arrived as a group, all in immaculate, custom-tailored whites, all except Leo, who arrived separately, carrying his worn canvas bag. Du Bois intercepted him immediately, his face a mask of fury. He demanded to know what the professional showcase registration meant, accusing him of forging documents. Leo replied calmly that he hadn't forged anything, he had just submitted his real competition record. Du Bois almost spat the word record, claiming Leo was barely capable of boiling water. Chloe approached, sensing the tension, and urgently informed Chef Du Bois that his preliminary judging was being called for confirmation. In the competitor's changing area, Leo carefully unpacked his grandmother's knife set. The wooden handles were smooth with age, the blades holding a legendary edge. He placed the tarnished silver-tasting spoon on the chest pocket of his simple, clean chef's jacket. Visible this time, an announcement echoed over the loudspeakers, stating that due to an exceptional scheduling situation, the first head-to-head demonstration in the professional showcase would feature Chef Antoine Du Bois of Le Cordon d'Or Elite Culinary Institute and Mr. Leo Williams, also representing Le Cordon d'Or Elite Culinary Institute. Du Bois emerged from the organizer's tent, livid. He had tried to protest, but the committee was adamant the record was valid, the scheduling final. He demanded to know what Leo had done, calling it a dirty trick. Leo met his eyes steady and stated simply that it was poetic justice. The crowd gathered around the main stage, intrigued by the visible tension between the two competitors supposedly from the same institution. The head judge called them forward. Du Bois bowed stiffly, his eyes blazing at Leo, who returned the gesture with a precise, almost reverent bow. The judge announced the challenge. a timed demonstration of a classic sauce requiring intricate technique and emulsification, followed by a rapid, elegant plating of a prepped element, with a time limit of 5 minutes total. The judge signaled the start. Du Bois immediately lunged forward, grabbing ingredients, his movements showy and aggressive. To everyone's surprise, Leo did not rush. He moved with a quiet, focused intensity, selecting his knives deliberately. While Du Bois was still loudly whisking, demonstrating effort over precision, Leo began the emulsification. In a movement so fluid it seemed effortless, his whisk became a blur, perfect speed, perfect angle. He created an impossibly stable, silky sauce in seconds. Then came the plating. A pre-seared scallop sat waiting. Du Bois was still struggling with his sauce, having broken the emulsification. Leo, however, moved to the plate. With surgical precision and breathtaking speed, he arranged the scallop, added a swirl of his perfect sauce, placed a few microgreens with tweezers, and added a final flourish, a precisely placed edible flower or a tiny dollop of caviar, all in one continuous, graceful flow. 14 seconds. That was the total time from Leo starting his plating to him stepping back, presenting a dish that looked less like a competition entry and more like edible art. 14 seconds to dismantle years of cultivated arrogance. The silence that followed was deafening. The judges, stunned, took an extra second to register the finished plate. The head judge slowly raised a hand towards Leo's dish, acknowledging its perfection. Someone in the crowd murmured about the flawless technique, just like Alara Williams in the old days. Du Bois stood frozen, his own broken sauce a pathetic mess beside him. He muttered loud enough for those nearby that it was luck. Maria Rodriguez stepped forward towards the stage, her presence commanding, and stated clearly that it wasn't luck. Antoine, it was pure mastery, the same mastery Alara had taught her grandson for years. Du Bois turned pale, asking about a grandson, claiming Alara Williams didn't have one. Maria interrupted, her voice clear, stating that she did, and Du Bois knew it, just like he knew the rumors he spread about her, ruining her reputation, were lies. Chloe stepped forward, holding her tablet, stating that she thought this would refresh his memory. She turned the screen towards the gathered crowd, showing an old video clip, a younger Du Bois speaking to a reporter, casually but pointedly casting doubt on Alara's practices during the scandal. The head judge, a revered figure in the culinary world, crossed his arms, stating gravely that Chef Du Bois, this was a serious matter, and requested his immediate presence for a disciplinary review by the committee. The crowd was now openly filming everything. Among them were several former students of Elite who had left after receiving similar demeaning treatment from Du Bois. Chloe continued, addressing the judge, stating that the videos of him humiliating students had been circulating online for weeks, and Leo had just given them the opportunity to put it all together with proof of his history. The head judge said even more gravely that this went far beyond a review and that they were talking about immediate suspension of his professional accreditation. Du Bois watched his empire crumble in real time. Years of cultivating an image of authority reduced to dust in minutes. His world fell apart as cameras captured every second of his humiliation. Leo, on the other hand, maintained the same quiet composure he had shown since day one. There was no malicious joy in his victory, just the quiet satisfaction of a mission accomplished. His voice carried across the silenced crowd as he stated that the true spirit of cooking wasn't about tearing others down or hiding behind pedigree. It was about respect for the ingredients, the craft, and everyone who shares the passion. As Du Bois was escorted away, defeated, Leo remained by the demonstration station, his grandmother's tarnished silver spoon glistening under the lights. He was no longer the young man who had been discriminated against and humiliated, but the embodiment of a powerful lesson. True strength never comes from arrogance, but from the character that reveals itself when no one believes in you. In the weeks following the competition, the culinary community was shaken by what became known as the 14-second plate. Videos of Leo's flawless execution and Du Bois's public downfall went viral, sparking intense debates about ethics, accessibility, and the true meaning of culinary excellence. Du Bois faced the total collapse of his career. The governing bodies not only suspended his accreditation but launched investigations into years of abusive practices at Le Cordon d'Or elite. Former students, encouraged by Leo's example, came forward with their own accounts. The institution Du Bois had built on elitism and prejudice crumbled. Le Cordon d'Or elite, desperate to save face, distanced itself from the scandal, removed Du Bois, and issued carefully worded apologies. But the damage was done. Enrollments dropped, and the institute's once sterling reputation was tarnished. As for Leo, he turned down lucrative offers from renowned restaurants who suddenly saw the potential in the prodigy from the South Side. He explained in an interview that he wasn't interested in chasing stars and that his goal was never about accolades. Instead, Leo accepted Maria Rodriguez's offer to help her expand her community program. With their new visibility, they secured funding to transform Maria's modest kitchen into a full-fledged community culinary center, offering free classes to young people from underserved neighborhoods. Leo explained to a culinary magazine that honoring his grandmother's legacy meant opening doors, as Alara believed true cooking was about nourishing people, not just feeding the elite. The partnership with Chloe also flourished. After leaving Elite, she used her family connections and her passion for ethical sourcing to help Leo and Maria establish relationships with local farmers and suppliers, building a sustainable model for the community kitchen. Months after the incident, Leo received his professional chef's accreditation in a quiet ceremony conducted by respected culinary figures who had known Alara. He pinned a simple, clean chef's jacket over his t-shirt, but the tarnished silver spoon was visible beneath. After the ceremony, Leo said that some people think titles determine value, but his grandmother taught him true value was in how you cook when no one is watching, and how you stand up for what's right when everyone is. The most surprising moment came unexpectedly. On a quiet afternoon, Antoine Du Bois showed up at the entrance of the new culinary center, now formally named the Alara Williams Community Kitchen. Thinner, with deep circles under his eyes, he was a shadow of his former arrogant self. Leo found him alone in the small office. After a long silence, Du Bois said he could have sued Leo for misrepresentation and defamation. Leo agreed quietly, without cruelty, but pointed out that it wouldn't have been convincing against all the evidence they gathered about his actions over the years. His history spoke for itself. Du Bois nodded, defeated, stating that he had lost everything at the Institute, his reputation, his standing, even his family. Leo replied softly that he had lost those things through his own actions, not because of what they did. After another tense silence, Du Bois finally spoke the words he had come to say, acknowledging that Alara was always better than him and that he was sorry for what he had done, to her and to Leo. Leo studied the man before him. Not a monster, just someone whose insecurity and ego had poisoned his character. Leo accepted his apology and asked what he would do now. Du Bois sounded lost, saying he didn't know, that no one would hire him or want to be associated with him. Leo thought for a moment and offered that they were starting a program next month teaching basic nutrition and cooking skills to local youth groups and needed volunteers to help with kitchen prep, logistics, organizing ingredients, and setting up stations. Du Bois looked at him in disbelief, asking why he would offer him that. Leo said, picking up the silver spoon, that his grandmother believed everyone deserved a second chance, but it had to be earned, not given. Months later, the Alara Williams Community Kitchen celebrated its first anniversary. Among the participants were neighborhood kids who could never afford classes at Elite, local families learning healthy recipes, and even a few of Du Bois's former Elite students who had found a new, welcoming home there. In the back, almost unnoticed, Antoine Du Bois quietly helped out, meticulously organizing ingredients and guiding volunteers. The road to redemption would be long, but he had taken the first step. That night, after everyone had left, Leo stood alone in the kitchen, holding his grandmother's silver spoon. He thought about how a public humiliation had become the catalyst for something much greater than simple revenge. His victory wasn't in the 14 seconds it took to plate a perfect dish, but in the countless moments since then, when each new student discovered that they belonged here, regardless of their background or resources. Leo often told his students that true power isn't in how fast you can cut or how fancy you can plate. It's how long you're willing to wait, learn, and prepare for the right moment. Leo Williams' story wasn't just about a young man who surprised a prejudiced chef, but about how moments of injustice can be turned into opportunities for systemic change in any field. While some chased stars and accolades, Leo fought for something more valuable. A future where no one would be judged by the clothes they wore or the neighborhood they came from, but by the integrity of their character and the purity of their passion for the craft. If this story touched your heart and showed you how strategic patience can turn humiliation into triumph, remember, sometimes the greatest masters are those no one expected to succeed until they proved them wrong in just 14 seconds.